I'm mad. This is how you act when you are out of control. I don't want to ever see my mother have to go through this again. Never, Jeffrey. Jeffrey, I hate you. I hate you. This is out of control. Jeffrey, I kill you. God can't look at me, motherfucker. I can kill you.
This is the scariest video on TikTok. So the video is just that trend where you play a scary audio and then you trap someone in a room and record the reaction. Now normally in these videos they'll have like a fake ghost effect, but this one's a little different because it has probably the creepiest thing I've ever seen in a TikTok, and that is this woman. She just stands there and stares the entire time, like she barely moves at all. She's so still the whole time, people are debating whether or not she's even real. Now looking deeper into the account, the woman seems to just be this lady, but they also post a lot of paranormal videos about things that happen in their house, like pictures moving on their own and creepy stuff like that. So maybe this lady is really just a ghost, but I'll let y'all decide that.
This is Walter, and he is currently facing a little over 6 years in prison, and here's why. He owned Future Gen X, which was a deceased body donation business in Seattle. The business closed down in April of 2020, however, this man kept the body parts from 9 individuals. He admitted to dumping those body parts in November of 2020 in a forest, and then a month later, woodcutters discovered an arm and a leg. Police were able to trace this back to Walter and find and arrest him. However, there is no sign of any malicious intent from Walter keeping the body parts. I'm not sure if it was for research or what his intentions were. However, he did make a formal apology and say that he will be taking responsibility for his actions.
Disturbing animal facts that you are going to unfollow me for. Butterflies don't just like flowers. There are many species that regularly feed on mud, feces, and blood. The purple emperor is a butterfly in Europe that often feeds on rotting, decomposing flesh. Also, butterflies taste with their feet and they're attracted to the salt in our sweat, so that butterfly that landed on your arm, it was tasting you. There have been multiple cases of chimpanzees stalking, snatching, and eating human children, the same way they hunt animals like colobus monkeys. There was an incident in Uganda where chimps found a local brew, got lit off it, and proceeded to unalive several small children. A 43-year-old woman was found unresponsive and unalive in her flat, and first responders thought she had been assaulted based on her injuries, until they opened a drawer and found a burrow her pet hamster made out of human skin, fat, and tissue. It turned out the woman passed tense to pneumonia, and her pet chewed up her face and scavenged her body to make a nest. People that live in areas around Komodo dragons often pile rocks on top of graves, since the lizards have been known to dig out human graves and eat whatever or whoever might be inside. Also, women on their period are strongly advised to stay out of Komodo country, since there's a chance the dragon might be attracted to the scent of blood and proceed to hunt them down.
Scaretober Day 18. The Titanic was one of the largest disasters to date, with over 1,500 people losing their lives. But what if I told you someone predicted the whole thing? The Wreck of the Titan is a novel written by Morgan Robertson and published in 1898, 14 years before the Titanic. In the book, a massive unsinkable ship called the Titan sinks in April in the North Atlantic due to hitting an iceberg, and there was not enough lifeboats for the passengers. The Titanic sunk in April in the North Atlantic by hitting an iceberg and didn't have enough lifeboats. He even went on to give very similar sized descriptions of the ship. Did Morgan Robertson know what was going to happen to the Titanic over a decade in advance?
People that died because of a prank. 18-year-old Pramila Lal and her cousin were on their way to a high school football game when they decided to stop by her uncle's home. Family friend Narek Galley was at the home with Pramila's brother. Pramila and her cousin snuck in the home and hid in the closet to scare Narek and her brother. Upon hearing noises though, Narek armed himself and began looking for an intruder. When Pramila jumped out of the closet and screamed to scare him, he turned around and shot her, before realizing that she was one of his best friends. She was immediately taken to the hospital, but unfortunately passed away a day later. Alright, so TikTok user Chop the Bouncer said, "Hello, I saw you on TikTok and I wanted to share an experience with you. I am a security supervisor in Buffalo, New York. I was doing one of my nightly patrols in a neighborhood town called Burt, New York. When I was driving down a country road, I saw what I had originally thought was a deer in the road. I slammed on the brakes to avoid hitting it. I looked at it closely and realized it wasn't a deer. It had the fur of a deer, a sickly skinny body and limbs, a round head like a human, and a snout like a dog. It then let out a blood-curdling scream and ran into the woods. I pulled a U-turn and decided to check on sights in the city instead." Well, Chop the Bouncer, that's a pretty scary one.
Yeah, I mean, if that's really what you saw, I don't blame you for turning around and going the other way. I would have done the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, he said it stood up on two legs, and it had like a round face like a human, but it had like deer fur. I mean, that's scary as hell.
Tiptoe to the window. Tiptoe through the tulips.
You're looking at one of the top 5 worst ways to become a hashtag. This is cordyceps fungus, and it's actually a parasite that paralyzes and mind controls its victim. The nightmare starts when spores from this fungus attach and infect an unsuspecting ant. As the fungus continues to spread, it actually changes the ant's behavior. The fungus makes the ant leave its nest and then climb up to somewhere more humid, i.e. the best possible place for fungus to grow. The ant then uses its jaws to attach itself to a leaf stem by biting down hard. Keep in mind the ant has no say in any of this, it's basically having its body possessed. And once the ant does, that's when the parasite no longer needs its host, and that's when things get R-rated. The cordyceps fungus explodes out of the ant's now past tense body, with the fungal fruiting body sprouting out of the ant's head. Its corpse becomes a garden for the fungus to grow and spit out more spores to infect even more ants. Getting infected is 100% a death sentence, which is why any sick ants immediately get evicted from the ant colony. Imagine waking up and having the urge to climb a tree and just sit there until you go from an R to a whir, only for that to rise out of your corpse. Be glad you weren't born an ant.
Forest fires. What if I told you that 85% of forest fires are started by humans and not Mother Nature? In September of 2020, a gender reveal party started what is now known as the El Dorado Forest Fire. This horrific event burned over 23,000 acres of property and also took the life of a firefighter named Charlie Morton. The couple were both charged and arrested. In 2016, Gatlinburg, Tennessee suffered a devastating fire that also burned over 10,000 acres of property, burned down 2,000 buildings, and took 14 lives. At the time, Tennessee was going through a drought, and allegedly 2 high schoolers had started this fire, and they were both charged with arson.
In this footage right here, you can see that the security guard appears to be talking to someone. Many people thought that he was initially talking over the phone because you can't see anyone else in the conversation, until he did something very strange. Right here you can see that he gives someone a fist bump, although it looks like he's just giving a fist bump to the air. The security guard in question, Freddy Matute, said this: "My friend comes and he greets me with the fist. He even asks me questions about La Isla, about a friend that we have in common on the 3rd floor." So La Isla is the name of the mall in Bucaramanga, Colombia, where Freddy and his friend had worked together for more than 10 years. But the thing is that Freddy is the only one who saw his friend that day. Freddy's coworkers on the other side of the cameras were alarmed. You know, they were probably thinking this dude was crazy. The coordinator found out that security guard Freddy was talking to someone, and he asked him who he was talking to. And Freddy said that he was talking to El Chavo. So El Chavo is the nickname of 28-year-old Joaquin Antonio Ruega, a janitorial worker at the mall. But the thing is that El Chavo had died from stomach cancer just a few hours earlier, and Freddy and his coworkers didn't know. Later, someone called the security guards to inform them that El Chavo had passed away, and you can see right here in this footage how Freddy reacts when they tell him over the radio that he's dead. He looks spooked. He jumps out of his seat, and he looks to the side where his friend had walked. So unsurprisingly, Freddy was sent to get a mental health evaluation because he was so convinced that he had spoken to a dead person. The other day we took him to get a medical evaluation to determine if he was in completely good health. And today he continues working with us again in the mall. A religious ceremony was organized for the man who passed away, and his only family member in Bucaramanga asked that he rest in peace. Freddie believes that this incident happened to him for a reason, and if it wasn't for the testimonies of all the workers, people would have just simply thought that this was a prank.
Creepy last words people said right before dying. Retired registered nurse Shirley Smith said that she had a rich patient who was a true Satanist. She had upside-down crosses and a satanic Bible at her bedside. The patient was dying of cancer, and Shirley will never forget what happened. It was the middle of the summer, and yet it was unbearably dark and cold in the patient's room, even in the middle of the day. There was such an evil vibe in the room that Shirley would call a priest to pray with her and her aides before they would even enter it. When the patient passed, she had not spoken in 24 hours, and then all of a sudden, she sat straight up and said, "Satan, take me." Then she fell back on the bed and died. After she died, the room got extremely bright and warm. Shirley said that when they moved the patient's body, they had to get rid of the mattress because the most horrible smell was coming from the mattress cover, and the part of the mattress where the patient was laying looked burnt.
New things and shit. This viral video shows two girls swinging on a swing set at the edge of a cliff in Russia. The swing is over 5,000 feet in the air, and halfway through the video, the swing snaps. Thankfully, the two girls escaped death by landing on a platform underneath the cliff. Whew, those girls are lucky and ballsy. Like, NASA could literally engineer a swing exactly like that, and my ass still wouldn't get on it. In other news, an anti-gay Hungarian politician resigns after being caught in a 25-man orgy. Because of the extremely high temperatures in Dubai, scientists are using drones that zap the clouds with electricity, creating thunderclouds that produce mass amounts of rain. A gas leak in the Gulf of Mexico broke out of an underwater pipeline, causing what many are describing as an eye of fire. Just when you think life can't get any crazier, the ocean catches on fire.
Let's talk about